The dark secret of Pleasant Hill, a Shaker community's terror. In the rolling hills of Kentucky, where morning mist still clings to forgotten meadows, stands the crumbling remains of what was once Pleasant Hill, a Shaker community that seemingly vanished overnight. Over 300 souls simply disappeared without a trace, leaving behind empty buildings and a profound silence. For nearly 2 centuries, the state of Kentucky has kept the official record sealed. However, recently uncovered testimonies from a visiting Ohio inspector reveal a horrifying truth. What happened at Pleasant Hill wasn't just a tragedy, it was 27 years of systematic terror disguised as holy devotion. The founding and the Richardson family's rise. What began in the year 1807 as a beacon of spiritual purity would become one of Kentucky's most carefully concealed secrets. The Second Great Awakening was sweeping across Kentucky, and Pleasant Hill emerged as a sanctuary for those seeking to live according to Shaker principles: celibacy, communal property, and separation from the world's corruption. The community, nestled in the fertile bluegrass region near Harrodsburg, attracted hundreds of converts who willingly surrendered their earthly possessions for the promise of spiritual perfection. At the heart of this seemingly devout community stood the Richardson family, whose influence permeated every aspect of daily life. Elder Samuel Richardson, the spiritual leader, claiming direct ordination from Mother Ann Lee's original disciples. His carefully maintained, immaculate Shaker garb and encyclopedic knowledge convinced visitors of his authenticity. He and his wife secretly continued their marriage, violating the celibacy rule. Sister Martha Richardson, Samuel's wife. She had an almost supernatural ability to read people's motivations and fears, managing the community's complex social dynamics with calculating intelligence masked by a gentle smile. Brother Ezekiel Richardson, the eldest son, who managed the community's extensive agricultural operations, transforming the farming from subsistence into a highly profitable commercial enterprise. Brother Caleb Richardson, the unofficial security chief, monitoring members' private conversations and correspondence with modern intelligence-like efficiency. Sister Rebecca Richardson, the eldest daughter, who oversaw the women's dormitories and new convert orientation. She channeled fierce maternal instincts into managing the female members and breaking down psychological defenses according to Richardson family specifications. Sister Patience Richardson, the youngest daughter, who maintained the community's official records and correspondence. She possessed a gift for forgery, allowing her to craft convincing letters in any handwriting, creating a documentary facade that protected the family's operations. Brother Jeremiah Richardson, Samuel's brother, who controlled the community's profitable furniture workshops. The workshop employed nearly 50 members in what appeared to be dignified craftsmanship, but functioned as a forced labor operation. Brother Isaiah Richardson, Samuel's cousin, who managed their lucrative seed business. His monthly travels to distant customers provided perfect cover for activities that would have horrified his business partners. Sister Hannah Collins, Martha's sister, who supervised the community's kitchens and food distribution. Her control over nutrition allowed the family to reward compliance and punish dissent. She applied her knowledge of various herbs and substances with scientific precision to manage the community's psychological and physical health. Mother Sarah Richardson, Samuel's elderly mother, who served as a living symbol of spiritual authenticity. In reality, she was the family's strategic mastermind, whose decades of experience in manipulation guided their long-term planning. Brother Nathan Richardson, Samuel's youngest brother, who managed the community's external relationships with local authorities, convincing the sheriff of Mercer County that Pleasant Hill was a model religious community through regular donations that purchased invaluable goodwill. The family had created what modern psychologists would recognize as a perfect totalitarian environment. Information flowed only downward from the leadership, while surveillance ensured that any dissent was quickly identified and addressed. New converts underwent a carefully designed indoctrination process that stripped away their previous identities, rebuilding their personalities into compliant followers who viewed questioning the family's authority as tantamount to questioning God himself. The first crack in the facade. The first crack in Pleasant Hill's perfect facade appeared on a frigid February morning in 1812, when Brother Thomas Whitman, a successful merchant who had donated his entire estate, began asking uncomfortable questions about the community's finances during a public meeting. Whitman's business background made him uniquely qualified to notice discrepancies. The seed business profits didn't match the sales amounts he had observed. The furniture workshop revenues seemed impossibly high. Most puzzling, the community's membership numbers, stated as 400 souls, didn't align with the food consumption records, which suggested they were feeding barely 250. Whitman presented his carefully calculated figures. "Where has this missing money gone?" he asked. The response came not from Samuel, but from Mother Sarah Richardson, her voice mixing gentle correction with unmistakable warning. "Your concerns show a heart still attached to worldly thinking. Perhaps you need time for prayer and reflection to overcome these doubts that trouble your faith." That evening, Thomas Whitman was found dead in his dormitory bed. Sister Rebecca announced he had passed gently in his sleep, called home by the Lord after confessing his sin of doubt during evening prayers. However, young Sister Mary Caldwell, who cleaned the dormitories, noticed disturbing details: a bitter almond smell, Thomas's fingernails having turned a distinct blue color, and traces of white foam around his mouth that Sister Rebecca had carefully wiped away. Brother Caleb collected all of Thomas's papers, including the financial calculations, which were later burned in the communal fireplace during a cleansing ceremony. Within a month, Thomas Whitman's memory was systematically erased. The retreat system and human trafficking. In the years following Whitman's death, a pattern of elimination emerged. Members who asked probing questions, expressed a desire to visit family, or showed signs of wanting to leave began experiencing a spiritual crisis, requiring special intervention. Brother Jeremiah Richardson developed the retreat system. Dissenters were assigned to isolated cabins scattered across the community's extensive property, facilities designed to appear rustic and spiritual, but which functioned as holding facilities. The cabins had heavy wooden shutters barred from the outside and doors that locked only from the exterior. Brother Caleb Richardson managed the logistics, using his informant network to identify retreat candidates. Sister Hannah Collins managed the community's correspondence with remarkable sophistication. When someone was selected for elimination, she would prepare multiple forged letters to be sent over months, creating the illusion of an ongoing correspondence that gradually explained the person's absence, often claiming they departed for missionary work or died peacefully following a brief illness. Brother Isaiah Richardson's seed business provided perfect cover for disposing of evidence. His monthly trips to distant farms offered opportunities to bury bodies in remote locations across Kentucky, Ohio, and Tennessee, transported in specially modified seed wagons with hidden compartments. By 1825, the family's enterprise had grown more insidious. They began selling community members, a human trafficking operation coordinated primarily by Brother Isaiah, to buyers who operated plantations and industrial facilities throughout the South and Midwest. This provided the highest profit margins and explained the mysterious disappearances. The victims were sold as indentured servants, complete with fabricated documentation proving their voluntary servitude. Sister Rebecca Richardson became the family's specialist in psychological assessment, categorizing newcomers into long-term assets, potential trafficking victims, or dangerous individuals who needed immediate elimination. The Richardson family had transformed a religious community into a sophisticated criminal enterprise that generated enormous profits while maintaining an impeccable public reputation. The arrival of Elder Meckham. The beginning of the end for the Richardson family's reign of terror came from an unexpected source, the legitimate Shaker leadership in Ohio. In late 1833, the Ohio Union of Shaker Communities sent Elder Joseph Meckham, one of their most experienced leaders, to evaluate Pleasant Hill for potential inclusion in their formal alliance. Meckham was a genuine disciple of Mother Ann Lee's teachings, possessing an intimate knowledge of proper Shaker practices, record-keeping, and community structure that made him nearly impossible to deceive. Meckham's first requests raised alarm bells. He wanted to examine financial records going back to the founding, and he insisted on speaking privately with randomly selected members without Richardson family supervision. He expected to reconcile reported membership numbers with consumption records, work output, and correspondence logs. The family's attempts to delay and deflect only intensified his suspicions. Most dangerously, some of the community's surviving members began responding to Meckham's genuine spiritual presence. Sister Mary Caldwell, who had witnessed Brother Thomas Whitman's suspicious death, found herself drawn to Meckham's authenticity and began sharing her long-suppressed observations. The investigation took a decisive turn when Meckham requested access to the community cemetery. He immediately noticed inconsistencies. The burial patterns didn't match the death dates in official records, and the condition of grave markers suggested many more interments than the documented deaths could account for. The final discovery and the fleeing of justice. On the night of March 15, 1834, Elder Meckham examined the community's cemetery by moonlight. He found a graveyard that told two different stories. The official cemetery contained approximately 40 graves with proper headstones. But Meckham's trained eye noticed subtle depressions, variations in soil color, and different vegetation patterns throughout the cemetery, suggesting many more unmarked burials. He realized that many of the official death dates corresponded exactly with his list of members who had allegedly left Pleasant Hill for new communities or distant relatives. His investigation was interrupted by Sister Mary Caldwell, who approached him among the graves and urgently whispered the terrifying truth. "God has sent you to reveal the truth. What you're seeing here is only a small part of what the Richardson family has done. They've been systematically murdering anyone who threatens their power or questions their authority." Mary revealed the use of poisons in the kitchen, the existence of covert burial sites across Kentucky used during the furniture delivery trips, and the full scope of the human trafficking network. She also revealed a chilling historical detail. The man who called himself Samuel Richardson was an imposter, and the original elder Samuel had died just 1 year after the community was founded, likely murdered by the Richardson family to assume their identities and inherit a ready-made community. Elder Meckham realized Pleasant Hill was not a corrupted Shaker community, it was a criminal enterprise from its beginning. Facing a choice between confronting the family and risking his own life or seeking help and risking the lives of the remaining members, Meckham chose to flee in the pre-dawn hours of March 16, 1834, taking Mary Caldwell with him as a witness. They rode to Harrodsburg, where Meckham convinced a federal marshal, Captain James Crawford, to organize an immediate raid. The aftermath and the sealed records. What the authorities discovered upon their return was a scene of horror. The Richardson family, realizing their exposure was inevitable, had attempted to eliminate all witnesses. Of the approximately 250 community members who had been alive when Meckham arrived, only 37 were found still living, locked in basement storage rooms. They had been chosen for their youth and physical capabilities, marked for sale to plantation owners in Mississippi and Alabama. The physical evidence was overwhelming. Hidden burial sites were found throughout the property, with over 150 unmarked graves scattered across the thousands of acres, many containing multiple bodies that showed signs of poisoning, strangulation, and blunt force trauma. In the family's private quarters, detailed ledgers documented their human trafficking operations, including the names of buyers, the prices paid, and descriptions of the merchandise. The operation had generated over $40,000 in profits. Martha Richardson's personal journal revealed systematic experiments in human manipulation, a clinical documentation of which methods were most effective for breaking down psychological resistance, with no remorse for the lives destroyed. Samuel, Martha, and their 6 adult children were arrested and charged with multiple counts of murder, kidnapping, fraud, and human trafficking. The trial, conducted in Frankfort throughout the summer of 1834, drew national attention. The evidence was so overwhelming that the jury required only 2 hours to return guilty verdicts. All 7 Richardson family members were convicted and sentenced to death, with executions carried out in October 1834. The 37 survivors faced the overwhelming challenge of rebuilding their lives after decades of psychological and physical abuse. Many struggled with what we would now recognize as severe post-traumatic stress disorder. The state of Kentucky quietly sealed most of the Pleasant Hill investigation records, concerned that publicizing the full details would damage the region's reputation. The community's buildings were demolished, and the land was sold to private farmers who were told only that the religious community had disbanded following financial difficulties. Modern historians who have gained access to the sealed records estimate that the Richardson family murdered or sold into slavery over 400 people during their 27-year operation. The Pleasant Hill tragedy remains a stark reminder of how easily religious faith can be weaponized by those who understand the psychology of control and manipulation, transforming the desire for divine connection into a tool of oppression and murder.